We're going to look at the Taiwan's political and especially economical system, and look at its significance and maybe importance for Japan as a jumping board into the Chinese market. Okay, so we're going to look in today's program at some basic information about Taiwan, Taipei, the role of Taipei or Chinese Taipei, history, the political situation, economics, and the role of China and the role of Japan in Taiwan. So first, some basic information about Taiwan. The GDP growth is in 2014 3.74%, which is significantly lower than it was a couple of years ago. Quite recently, they were in some kind of slump at growth rates around 2%. But recently they're climbing up again. But compared to before, 3.74 is compared to over the past 20 years, it's not very high. GDP is 530 billion US dollars in 2014, and per head 22,700 gross domestic product. In purchasing power parity, that's 44,000 in 2014, which is quite significant. So Taiwan is definitely, in terms of labor costs, is not a cost leader. Inflation is very low at 2%. Population is 23.5 million people. And the languages spoken are Mandarin, Taiwanese, Hakkanese, and the Aboriginals language. I didn't know that Taiwan has Aborigines, but actually they do. Major trading partners in exports are China, Hong Kong, US, and Singapore. And imports, Japan is still number 2. China is number 1. US, Korea, Saudi Arabia. I think later on there's slightly different statistics than this. I just noticed, but we will see later. I think there in the graph later on there is a little bit different order, but number 2 Japan in terms of import is still correct. In politics, the Kuomintang government, already mentioned this morning, the Chinese nationalists, led by Ma, enters 2015 beset by popular protest, mainly over its cross-trades and nuclear energy policies. So cross-trades means the policies with mainland China and nuclear energy policies. It will limp to 2016 elections confronted by a hostile legislature, so he doesn't have support in parliament, and unable to make progress with preferred policies such as trade integration and closer ties with mainland China. So it's very difficult for Ma to maneuver because he doesn't have the popular support as well as the political support within not only within the government but also in parliament. So he is a little bit of a lame duck, as we say in English, at the moment. So the history of Japan, and yes, there we are again. The Dutch were in Taiwan between 1624 and 1662. We were not there for too long. At that time, Taiwan had many tribes, and the Dutch managed to gain foothold initially first by just trade mainly in deer hides, but quite common, it became clear that exercising more control gave more favorable trading possibilities. So they started to extend their influence. First, what they did is they beaten or burned down, or not exactly clear how to explain this best, the village of the most powerful tribe, which gave them a lot of support from the opposing tribes, and that's how they managed to gain foothold. But gradually, more and more people from mainland China were flowing in as workers. They were welcomed by the Dutch because the people from mainland had more knowledge about farming and more. They were more qualified than the people in Taiwan. But finally, they took over, and the people of Taiwan sided with the Chinese, and they kicked out the Dutch. So then the Ming dynasty took over from 1662. They took control, and they drove out the Dutch East India Company. And that only lasted for 21 years, and then the Qing Empire takes control of Taiwan. Then between 1859 and 1945, there was Japan has its first colony in Taiwan. They ruled it for almost 50 years.